The Great Wall of China stands as the ultimate testament to human endurance. It is not merely a physical barrier, but the grandest architectural manifestation of a civilization's will to survive, protect its people, and define its place in the world. To understand its monumental significance, we must trace its origins back to an era of absolute chaos. Before there was a unified China, there was the Warring States period, centuries of endless bloody conflict among fragmented kingdoms. Beyond the internal warfare, a far more terrifying threat loomed in the north. The vast steppes were home to fierce nomadic confederations, highly mobile warriors whose lightning-fast cavalry raids constantly devastated the settled, agricultural societies of the south. The agricultural states realized that to survive, they needed a shield. They began constructing independent, localized barriers of rammed earth. However, these fragmented walls were easily bypassed, leaving the heartland vulnerable to overwhelming nomadic incursions. Everything changed in 221 BCE. Qin Shi Huang, a visionary of unparalleled ambition, conquered the rival states and forged the first unified Chinese empire. Out of the ashes of civil war, a new superpower was born. Recognizing that internal peace required absolute external security, the first emperor issued a colossal decree. He ordered his armies to connect the fragmented northern walls into a single, continuous line of defense. The Great Wall was officially born. The scale of this engineering feat is almost unimaginable. Long before the era of stone and brick, millions of laborers used the Hung Tu technique, violently pounding layers of earth and gravel between wooden frames to create indestructible mounds. Despite the brutal conditions, this unified earthen shield served a profound geopolitical purpose. It drew a definitive line in the sand. It clearly separated the agrarian order of the Middle Kingdom from the fluid chaos of the nomadic steppes. More importantly, the wall revolutionized imperial logistics. By flattening the peaks of treacherous mountains, it created a massive, elevated highway. The empire could now mobilize troops, convey orders, and shift resources across thousands of miles with unprecedented speed. It also functioned as the ancient world's most advanced early warning system. A sophisticated network of earthen watchtowers allowed border guards to transmit smoke signals during the day and fire at night, alerting the capital to invasions within hours. This defensive network allowed the agrarian empire to thrive and mature. Sheltered behind the earthen dragon, arts, philosophy, and agriculture flourished in an era of relative stability, laying the cultural foundations of modern China. As the Han Dynasty succeeded the Qin, the purpose of the Great Wall evolved from mere survival to grand strategic expansion. Emperor Wu of Han pushed the walls deeper into the treacherous, arid expanses of the Gobi Desert. This westward expansion was not driven by fear, but by a brilliant economic vision. The Han Dynasty sought to protect and monopolize the most vital artery of ancient global trade, the legendary Silk Road. The wall was transformed into the guardian of global commerce. By extending fortified earthen outposts into the Tarim Basin, the Chinese military provided safe passage for merchants, shielding priceless caravans from nomadic bandits and ensuring the flow of wealth. Under the watchful eyes of the Han garrisons, staggering amounts of silk, tea and porcelain flowed westward, while exotic spices, horses, and new technologies flowed into China. The wall acted as a massive, secure conduit connecting east and west. Beyond economics, this secure corridor facilitated an unprecedented era of cultural exchange. Along the shadowed walls of these desert fortresses, philosophies intertwined. It was through this protected route that Buddhism eventually made its profound journey from India into China. The Great Wall was not an iron curtain designed to isolate. It was a highly regulated gateway. It managed the flow of humanity, allowing the empire to absorb the best of the outside world while keeping destructive forces at bay. The sheer logistical brilliance required to sustain thousands of soldiers in the unforgiving western deserts stands as one of the greatest administrative triumphs of the ancient world. The wall proved the unmatched organizational power of the Chinese state. Even today, the ancient earthen ruins of the Han and Qin walls stand silently in the Gobi Desert. Though eroded by 2 millennia of wind and sand, they radiate an aura of undeniable historical majesty and resilience. They laid the indestructible psychological and territorial foundations of the Middle Kingdom. These earthen roots held the empire together through its darkest centuries, preparing the stage for the magnificent stone dragons that would eventually crown the mountains. The 14th century brought a seismic shift. The Ming Dynasty expelled the Mongol Empire from China, reclaiming the heartland. To protect this fragile, hard-won golden age from northern retaliation, they initiated the most ambitious construction project in human history. The Ming emperors possessed a grand vision. They recognized that the ancient earthen walls of their ancestors were no longer sufficient against modern, heavily armed cavalry. They resolved to forge an indestructible shield of stone and fire. This endeavor mobilized the full economic and organizational might of a superpower. Millions of artisans, soldiers, and laborers were deployed to the treacherous northern mountains. They transformed the jagged peaks into the largest continuous construction site on Earth. The architectural paradigm completely shifted. The Ming abandoned the fragile rammed earth of antiquity. Instead, they quarried millions of tons of solid granite and fired billions of immense gray bricks in colossal, blazing kilns across the frontier. These bricks were a marvel of pre-modern mass production. Each one was stamped with the name of its maker and overseer, ensuring absolute accountability and paralleled quality control. It was an empire meticulously building its survival, block by block. To bind this massive stone dragon, Ming engineers invented a revolutionary chemical marvel. They mixed slaked lime with an organic secret weapon, sticky rice soup. This created an ultra-strong mortar, highly resistant to earthquakes and erosion. This ingenious sticky rice mortar is the true secret behind the wall's immortality. It formed a bond so absolute that even after 5 centuries of harsh winters and torrential rains, weeds still struggled to pierce the stone joints. The Ming Wall is not merely built on the mountains, it weaponizes the geography itself. It snakes along the highest, most perilous ridges, turning sheer cliffs into natural extensions of the fortress. It is a harmonious yet terrifying integration. The continuous wall was punctuated by thousands of massive, multi-story watchtowers.
These were not just lookout posts, they were heavily armored independent fortresses designed to house entire platoons, complete with armories, barracks, and food reserves. Within these stone sanctuaries, Ming soldiers could survive prolonged sieges without resupply. They were masterpieces of tactical architecture, featuring complex crenellations, overlapping fields of fire, and intricate corridors that turned any breach into a deadly labyrinth. The engineers even conquered the rivers. Where the wall met major waterways, they constructed ingenious water passes. These massive stone arches featured heavy iron grates that allowed water to flow while completely blocking enemy ships and cavalry. At its eastern terminus stood the breathtaking Shanhai Pass, the first pass under heaven. Here, the colossal stone dragon dramatically plunged its head directly into the crashing waves of the Bohai Sea, completely sealing the coastal corridor. Thousands of miles away, in the harsh western deserts, stood Jiayuguan. This majestic, heavily fortified citadel anchored the wall's western end, projecting Ming power deep into Central Asia and fiercely guarding the gateway of the Silk Road. But stone and mortar were half of the equation. The Ming Dynasty transformed the Great Wall into the world's most heavily armed gunpowder fortress. It was an unprecedented perimeter of modern, explosive warfare. The battlements bristled with thousands of advanced artillery pieces, including breech-loading phalange cannons. When the alarm sounded, the stone dragon breathed literal fire, unleashing devastating barrages that shattered nomadic cavalry formations long before they could reach the base. Beyond heavy artillery, the Ming garrisons were equipped with early matchlock muskets, hand cannons, and primitive fragmentation grenades. The wall was a towering 5,000-mile-long firing squad, representing the absolute pinnacle of 16th-century military technology. However, this incredible machine was nothing without the men who manned it. Generations of dedicated Ming soldiers spent their entire lives on these desolate peaks, enduring freezing winters and scorching summers to shield the millions sleeping peacefully behind them. Their immense sacrifice bought the empire centuries of security. Behind this impenetrable shield, the Ming Dynasty experienced an economic and cultural renaissance. Cities exploded with wealth, art, literature, and global trade flourished in a protected haven. The psychological impact on the northern tribes was absolute. The imposing gray skyline broke the spirit of nomadic invasions. It forced them to realize that the days of easy plunder were over. The agrarian empire had become an unbreakable fortress. The Ming Great Wall is the ultimate triumph of human engineering over geography and terror. It stands as a majestic, enduring monument to a civilization that refused to yield, choosing instead to carve its resilience permanently into the spine of the earth. Beyond its sheer physical mass, the Great Wall operated as the ancient world's most sophisticated nervous system. It was not merely a static shield, but a highly dynamic, living machine of imperial communication and intelligence. The beacon towers formed a continental telegraph system, utilizing smoke blended with wolf dung during the day and roaring fires at night. Military intelligence could travel across thousands of miles of rugged terrain in a matter of hours. This unprecedented speed of information allowed the centralized government in Beijing to mobilize massive armies, shift resources, and respond to frontier crises faster than any contemporary empire on Earth. It conquered the tyranny of distance. Running parallel to the wall was the Yijian or postal relay system. Elite riders, stationed at fortified intervals, galloped relentlessly along the elevated stone highways, delivering vital imperial decrees and logistical reports through the harshest conditions. To sustain the massive garrisons, the empire implemented the Tuntian system. Soldiers were not just warriors, they were pioneers. They farmed the desolate lands behind the wall, transforming barren frontiers into self-sufficient agricultural hubs that fed the military machine. This ingenious integration of military defense and agricultural expansion ensured that the Great Wall was never a drain on the heartland. Instead, it generated its own sustenance, anchoring Chinese civilization firmly into the northern soil. The psychological comfort provided by this colossal barrier was immeasurable. Knowing the stone dragon stood eternal guard in the north, the interior provinces of the Ming Empire experienced an unprecedented era of cultural and philosophical flourishing. It was the ultimate protector of the East Asian Renaissance. While Europe was recovering from the Dark Ages, the Great Wall secured a golden era of literature, magnificent porcelain artistry, and the expansion of the vital tea and horse trade. As centuries turned, the geopolitical landscape evolved. In the 17th century, the Qin Dynasty arose, uniting the lands beyond the wall with the empire within. The Great Wall was no longer a military border, but a profound internal monument. Stripped of its military purpose, the wall entered a new phase of existence. It stood silently against the relentless test of time. It faced devastating earthquakes, torrential storms, and centuries of freezing snows.
Yet the stone dragon refused to crumble. The brilliance of the Ming engineers, the strength of the sticky rice mortar, and the sheer weight of the granite proved to be stronger than nature itself. It endured. In the 20th century, a fractured, modernizing China looked back to its ancient roots for inspiration. The Great Wall awakened once more, no longer as a weapon of war, but as the ultimate symbol of national resilience and unity. It became the spiritual backbone of the nation. It reminded the people that they were the descendants of builders who could conquer the highest mountains, tame the harshest deserts, and achieve the impossible through collective will. Today, the wall performs a miracle its original architects could never have imagined. A structure designed exclusively to keep the world out has become the very thing that brings the entire world together. Millions of people from every continent travel across oceans to walk its ancient stones. They come not as invaders, but as pilgrims, standing in awe of the greatest architectural triumph in human history. The popular myth that it is the only man-made structure visible from space, while scientifically inaccurate, perfectly captures its planetary significance. It is a monument of such colossal scale that it belongs not just to China, but to Earth. Ultimately, the Great Wall is not a monument to emperors or generals.
It is the eternal, silent tribute to the millions of unmaimed laborers, artisans, and soldiers whose sweat and sacrifice forged the physical boundaries of a civilization. Every brick is a testament to perseverance. Every watchtower is a monument to vigilance. Together, they form an indestructible dragon of stone that has watched over the rise, fall, and rebirth of the Middle Kingdom. The Great Wall of China teaches humanity an enduring lesson. True greatness is not measured by the wars we win, but by what we are willing to build, protect, and pass down to the generations that follow. The stone dragon now sleeps peacefully across the northern mountains. Its fires are extinguished, its garrisons are empty, but its spirit remains unbroken, an eternal guardian of history, standing forever at the crossroads of time.